Good evening, everybody. Thank you for being here. This is a regular meeting of the Downers Grove Grade School District 58 Board of Education here on Monday, January 10th, 2022 at 7 p.m. at O'Neill Middle School. This meeting is being live streamed for the public on the District 58's YouTube channel. Melissa, will you please call roll?
Member Doshi.
Here.
Member Ellis. Here. Member Hannes. Here. Member Harris.
Here.
Member Olczyk.
Here.
Member Weiner. Here. Member Hughes.
Here. Tonight, members of the audience will have an opportunity to provide public comment to the board later on in the agenda. The board asks anyone wishing to comment to please fill out a card and indicate the topic to be addressed. This can be placed in the basket on that table over there to my right, and I have allotted 30 minutes tonight for public comment. To start us off today, we want to welcome Leicester School with Principal Katie Novosel and Assistant Principal Lori Smith, and they're going to lead us in the flag salute. the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, well, thank you so much for having us tonight. We are very excited to be here. When I offered the student council to help us out to create this video, they were all very excited to help us. So this is a work of love from all of them. And they were happy enough to come tonight and help us out as well. In this year that has brought some unique challenges, there have been so many great things happening at Lester, and so we're excited to share some of those great things that are happening every day.
We will focus on a variety of levels of questions throughout instruction. Hi, my name is Katie Scott, and here at Lester, we can't stop the questioning. All of our teachers have been focusing on asking different levels of questions, especially during ELA group time.
At Lester, we are focusing on including a variety of levels of questions using web depth of knowledge. Through implementation of this goal, our hope is to increase levels of academic achievement and comprehension at all grade levels. Our instructional leadership team has supported our staff and have been pivotal in the implementation of this goal. Grade level teams work within benchmark and study sync to determine levels of questions presented within the curriculum and supplement with levels not currently present within lessons.
We will implement our new math curriculum resources with fidelity.
Hi, I'm Allie Church. We can't stop the amazing math thank you. As you may know, we have been using a new math curriculum in District 58. K-5 teachers have been implementing bridges, and 6th grade has continued to implement their ideas.
We have been utilizing our amazing instructional coaches and curriculum coordinators to support the implementation of our new math curriculum. Classroom teachers collaborate regularly to ensure that they are teaching this curriculum with fidelity. This new curriculum has provided students opportunities to deepen their understanding of math concepts and problem-solving skills.
We will establish a culture and climate of positive psychology.
Hi, I'm Sean O'Donnell, and here at Lester School, we're focusing on not stopping the feeling of happiness and joy. Every Monday, we're going to remind Lester students and staff to be positive and kind to one another. We have found ways to show our appreciation and happiness and joy to one another around Lester School.
Our Lester Orange Frog Committee has committed to building a positive culture with staff, parents, and students through a variety of activities. A few of these activities include the Orange Spark Card, which provides refreshments to staff, the Lester Star Award, which recognizes staff for outstanding efforts, notes of positivity and gratitude, classroom projects, theme days and weeks, which include our Mondays, Orange You Glad It's Monday, and Friday Lester Spirit Days. Spotted Be Good Awards to recognize outstanding student efforts on a daily basis, and connecting with families on positive and personal levels. We are working to continue to foster a community of positivity and collaboration at Lester School.
our hat, and we raised Longfellow. Another one is the giving tree, which is our more recent one. For the giving tree, we were able to donate from House, Skies, Clubs, Plays, and more. There are more fundraisers where that came from, like our task force. But also, not just the ones in the past, but also the ones that we'll be doing in the future. And we have been doing many more fundraisers. Don't get too ready.
All right, I'm Lori Smith. I'm the super proud assistant principal of Leicester Elementary School, and I'm here to introduce to you Mrs. Marina Kasicki and Miss Taylor Sopran, who will talk a little bit more about our student council.
So today we have with us two of our officers. We have Claire and we have Sean, and then we have Hayden and Callie, who are two of our class representatives. And this year, student council is all sixth grade, and they're doing an awesome job.
We love seeing the way that they're just totally taking on this year at first. They're overcoming so many challenges with all the COVID that we still have going on, and they're coming up with great ideas that we can send them to schools. So we're very grateful to have such awesome leaders.
And they're going to tell you just about a couple things we've done and things that are coming up.
Hello, my name is Caden Steidel, and in November, students and staff showed their gratitude for others and raised over $2,000. This money went to holiday gift cards for local families.
Student Council will help create a video showing students important expectations, including proper mask wearing, social distancing, and lunchroom behavior.
During the week of February 7th, we will collect non-perishable food items for the People's Resource Center's food pantry. Students will vote for what team they want and hope to win the Super Bowl.
In March, students will be encouraged to donate $1 and wear a hat to school. All proceeds will go to St. Baldrick's, which raises money for childhood cancer research.
All right, thank you guys. And one last guest up here, we have Miss Lisa Kelsey, our president of our PTA.
Hi, thanks. Great job, everyone. I could talk for an hour about the Leicester PTA, but I'm not going to. I just want to give a couple of highlights. We've had a great school year so far this year, but I did want to touch on a few things that we did toward the end of last year because they're definitely worth mentioning. I wanted to talk about our 2021 was successful. From a fundraising standpoint at Leicester. Despite the challenges, our committees worked really hard. We put on a successful winter fundraiser, and then we also, in the fall, put on a very successful and very fun run. It was great, and everything was safe, and all the kids had a great time, and we really did a great job of fundraising. I'm very proud of our committees, especially those in fundraising. The second thing I wanted to talk about was we really have upped our game as far as trying to support our teachers and our staff and the students at Leicester. Every chance we have as a PTA, we're bringing things in for them. We're trying to help. Once we were allowed to bring parents in, we got parents in who set up and take down the lunch tables. We have to have our lunch at Leicester is complicated, to say the least, and we have a lot of students, and so we have parent volunteers who safely come in and set up and take down everything, and I'm really proud of those volunteers. And then one last thing from last year, we took all of our field trips virtual. We had a great committee that worked really hard to plan with the teachers appropriate field trips for every grade. And we had everything from a neighbor settlement virtual field trip for 3rd grade to our 5th and 6th graders making music. It was really wonderful. And then finally, just to wrap it up, in 2020, we canceled. Fun Lunch is a big deal at Leicester. We love it. It's great. I used to chair it, so I'm a little proud of it. But we had to cancel 6 lunches in the 2020 school year, which was difficult. So we threw as much support as we could to local restaurants during the shutdown. We bought gift cards, we sent people there, and then we had to refund all the funds that we had taken in. And Leicester parents, this is not as a PTA donation, but the parents directed their refunds to Blessings in a Backpack. So we'll be doing a large donation for them coming up very soon from all the refunds that we took from Fun Lunch. And that's something I'm really proud of that our school did as a community effort. So thanks so much for having us.
All right, so last but not least, we just want to thank the board for having us and absolutely for all of your support. We really, truly are so lucky to have such an amazing board behind us, and we are so grateful, so thank you.
Thank you, and thank you to the PTA, and wonderful job to the Student Council. All right, next up is communications. Listed on tonight's agenda are 6 communications received by the board. Are there any additional communications board members would like to share at this time? All right, then we're going to go on to the spotlight today, which is going to be on the Education Foundation. Dr. Russell?
Well, first off, I want to thank everyone for coming, especially all of our teachers who are here this evening and members of our foundation. And we have Brianna Richardson from our executive board, so welcome. Unfortunately, Megan Hewitt is not able to be here tonight, so I'm going to be pinch hitting for Megan with the presentation. The presentation is going to be an abridged version of the full presentation. All of the information, though, will be posted on board docs so people can see more specifics about each individual grant and the recipient for each individual grant. But without further ado, I'd like to jump into one of the biggest programs that our foundation offers, which is our teacher grant. So just a little bit of background about the Education Foundation in District 58. The foundation was founded in 2002 to enhance the educational experience for both teachers and students in the district. I was a teacher back in 2002 here in the district, and the foundation started off really strong, and they've continued to do so throughout the year. During a typical year, their fundraisers include Oktoberfest, Green Apple Awards, Harlem Wizards, Koha, and Grove Express. Obviously, some of those things have been impacted by the pandemic, but the foundation continues to do just about all of their events, with maybe the exception of the Harlem Wizards during the pandemic. During a typical year, their fundraising goes to support things like teacher grants, sneak preview at the middle school, Select 58 at the middle school, Distinguished Service Awards for all of our staff across the district, the reading games, new teacher luncheon, and so much more. Tonight, we're here to honor the 21 teachers in the audience for the grants totaling over $11,000 in the fall of 2021. So on behalf of all of us up here tonight, I want to not only thank our teachers for coming, but thank our teachers for all that they did to take the extra time to apply for the grants and give these additional opportunities to your students. So on behalf of the Board of Education, myself, and the Education Foundation, I'd like to thank you for all of your hard work. Congratulations. So we will highlight one, just so people can get a flavor here. We made this decision very carefully in terms of which one to highlight. Megan Beard, you are the winner because B is at the beginning of the alphabet, so congratulations.
I'll take it.
There you go. So this is an example, and all cards on the table. I didn't even know we had this kind of technology, but these Bluetooth stylus pens, which is a really cool thing that Megan's students are enjoying in the class of Leicester. And then Megan's students actually made us a video to highlight their thanks to the foundation. So James, do you mind skipping to the next slide and go ahead and play in that one? Which that's a feat in itself, trying to get all kids in unison to say thank you. So congratulations, that's just another example of the work that our amazing teachers do. And the teachers in the audience represent many different buildings, many different grade levels, elementary as well as middle school. And so again, we can't thank you enough for all of your hard work. And for those of you who are interested in seeing each individual grant and each recipient, you can find that on board docs, as Melissa will be posting this to the agenda. So James, if you don't mind, if we can skip down to slide 13. We want to highlight some other work from the Education Foundation. New this year, the Education Foundation has taken over the Grove Express. Many of you may be familiar with the Grove Express. It used to be called the Bonfield Express. And when the Bonfield Express announced that they would retire its traditional Thanksgiving race, 3 organizations across town really stepped up to support this race because it is such a great tradition here in Downers Grove. So those 3 organizations are, of course, the Education Foundation of District 58, the Rotary Club, and then also the Roadrunners Soccer Club. So all 3 of those organizations teamed up to keep this race going. The inaugural Grove Express was a big success. We had about 4,700 participants. It raised well over $100,000. And so each organization got approximately $35,000. And the other organizations, Roadrunners and the Rotary, are committed to even giving their portion, a portion of their piece back to the schools and into our classrooms. So we're very excited about that. Please mark your calendars for next Thanksgiving. We will be back and supporting this race. And I have to tell you, from being there, it was great seeing everybody back. It was one of the first big events we were able to do again, and it was very neat. In addition to that, we did also conduct Oktoberfest. I want to thank all of our teachers. You'll see them in the pictures, and our administrators and other staff members for volunteering. Oktoberfest was a huge hit again this year, and so it was really nice to see the community come together in downtown Downers Grove in September. And while that seems like it was 100 years ago, it wasn't that long ago, but it was certainly a fun weekend in downtown Downers Grove. We're very excited about bringing hopefully in-person DSA, but last spring we did do a virtual Distinguished Service Award, and it was a little different, but we enjoyed it a great deal, being able to go into the various buildings and award our teachers for winning the Distinguished Service Award. So it was a lot of fun, and we had 25 staff that were nominated, and we had a couple winners that you can see up here on the screen, but again, a lot of fun to recognize those that go above and beyond in our school district. So looking ahead, believe it or not, this year is the 20th anniversary of the Education Foundation. So the Education Foundation is going to be taking opportunities to celebrate, but also to start a strategic planning process, and there will be more details on that forthcoming. Prior to concluding the presentation, I want to highlight Karat Doshi, our board member. The Board of Education does have a liaison on our board, and Karat serves alongside the superintendent and other officials in the district to represent the Education Foundation. So I want to thank everyone for coming tonight. Thank Karat for her service, Brianna for all that you do, and we hope everyone has a great night. So thank you for coming.
Yes, once again, thank you to the Education Foundation. It's amazing work that you do, but I did want to, as you guys are leaving, I do just want to, there's a lot of you here that did get the award, grants, and I just want to thank you so much, because I know even the effort that you do to put the request in for the grant, I mean, it's just great, and we see some examples of some of the cool things that are going on here, so we really greatly appreciate all that you do for our students and finding ways to make things better through the District 58 Foundation, so thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
All right, you're not off the hook yet, because next on the docket is the Superintendents Report, so back to you, Doug.
Now, I thought everyone was coming here for my report, but I guess not. All right, so to begin curriculum instruction, we'd like to do a little bit of recognition here. I'd like to congratulate Mr. Justin Sissel on being named Administrator of the Year by the Illinois Music Education Association. Justin's a former music educator here in District 58, and he's been instrumental at developing and maintaining District 58's music program throughout his tenure in the district. Justin's leadership in this area is well known throughout the state of Illinois, and we couldn't be more proud of him for achieving this major accomplishment. Justin will be presented with this award later on in the month in Peoria. So Justin, on behalf of all of us in the district, congratulations on this huge achievement. We hosted an Institute Day last week on January 3rd. District 58 certified staff participated in the third Institute Day of the school year. Nearly 90 sessions were prepared for this conference format day, in which all staff attended a keynote session and 4 additional sessions. We were thrilled to welcome Jimmy Cassis, a nationally renowned speaker who inspired and motivated our staff. Feedback from all of our sessions was overwhelmingly positive, and as always, we received thoughtful suggestions for improvement. We're so incredibly grateful to our curriculum team, our instructional coaching team, our administrative team, and all the staff who offered to present sessions. This was most definitely a meaningful and relevant day of professional learning, and the full list can be accessed if you have any questions on what we went over on that particular day. In terms of finance for the school district, I want to highlight that the sale of the Longfellow Center was completed earlier today. The building was sold to McNaughton Builders for a price of $4.155 million. The sale of this building has been discussed for decades, and we are grateful that we are now able to move forward with much needed capital projects with the proceeds from the sale. We discussed that at the last board meeting, what we would use the proceeds for. With the sale complete, the district is now also able to move forward with a joint partnership with the Village of Downers Grove on a new civic center that would include a new administrative home for District 58. The sale of the center is something, again, that's been discussed for decades. The building was closed in 1978. The building was severely deteriorating, and repairing it and bringing it up to code was not feasible given the cost and the other urgent needs of the district. Simply put, the cost to repair Longfellow was far too much, and it would have significantly impacted the district's ability to fund much-needed capital projects in our other locations. Additionally, the partnership with the village, combined with the limitations of the Longfellow site, is why we needed to move on from this building, like the district has had to do with other buildings in its past, like Washington School or even Lincoln School. In the near future, the district will put out a press release detailing the sale to the public. In terms of personnel, like every school district in Illinois, we're experiencing staffing shortages due to the pandemic. Last week, our staff absences ranged from a low of 88 to a high of 107. Today, our absences were back in line with what we would typically experience. I'm very hopeful that this trend will continue. Before we move on to the next topic, though, I would like to thank Dr. Uzentis and all of our building principals for continually finding ways to keep our schools open and functioning during this challenging time. I think Jane and all of our principals start their morning off at about 4 a.m. looking at the sublist, and that's after going to bed at 11 looking at the sublist, trying to make everything happen, and I want to recognize their hard work and really thank them. It is a very challenging job to keep schools in person. We know how important in-person learning is, and because of their efforts, we've been successful to date at doing that. So thank you very much for all of your efforts. I'd also like to thank all of our current staff for filling in, whether that's internally subbing or just agreeing to do something different that day to make it happen. And then last but certainly not least, I want to thank all of our substitutes. Whether you're a substitute teacher, a substitute office worker, or a substitute custodial worker, without their hard work and dedication, we realize they can work in just about every district because everybody needs their help. They've chosen to work in District 58 on behalf of our kids, and because of that, we've been able to weather this storm to date, and we're very, very thankful for everyone's hard work. It takes a team, it takes a community in this sense, and we're very, very pleased at how everyone is pitching in. So on behalf of all of us, thank you to everyone involved in making sure that we keep in-person learning going. In terms of technology, the technology department is currently working on supporting benchmarking assessment testing for NWA, Ames Web, and Access. We'll share those scores with the board in the coming weeks and months. We're also finalizing preparations for parent-teacher conference registration. Due to the frustration with PowerSchool's capacity to support our demand, we're planning to utilize a new software program for registration. The platform we're planning to use this winter is one that we have used in previous years and is also the same platform utilized by District 99. We've had success with that, and it matches what the high school is doing. And so I want to thank Dr. Eichmiller for recognizing we needed a change in that area, and then going back with a more trusted software program. And thank you for our parents for kind of enduring the ups and downs of the power school that we've been going through. In terms of student services, another group that I want to thank is our nurses. Not only for what they do every single day, but if you got that letter, even I kind of had to read that number that said 306 cases over break for students and staff. Knowing that our nurses had to process every single one of those so that we could start school on January 4th, we can't thank them enough for all of their hard work. They did an outstanding job, and they continue to do an outstanding job every day, so thank you. Coming back to facilities, over winter break, the district completed moving out of the Longfellow Center and into the District Service Center, which was formerly known as the ASC. This building is located on 63rd Street and was once the home for the majority of the district's administrators. Back in the 90s, it used to be the home for both District 99 and District 58. The District Service Center will now house the materials for technology, maintenance, and curriculum. Further, staff members from the Buildings and Grounds and Technology Department and one curriculum staff member will be housed at this location. I would like to thank Kevin Bartle and Jeff Newstead for overseeing the renovation of this facility as well as the entire move process, which was not an easy task. For the first time in decades, the district's entire administration is now located in one facility, and we have an efficient warehouse that will meet our needs. True progress is being made in our facilities, and we're proud of the hard work that is taking place. However, we still continue to have issues with our current facilities, and I need to highlight those needs as we talk about the repairs that need to be done. A couple of examples I want to highlight. I'll be brief. Whittier. The controls at Whittier for the heating system are so outdated that you're no longer able to read the, I guess you can call them the old school computer technology. And so we have to replace those in order to be able to control the temperature. One of the things that you'll see with aging control systems is that your room either lacks heat or the heat comes in so much that it's extremely hot in the rooms. We really need the ability to control the heat in all of our schools because it's either too little or often too much. It's very challenging to get it right in the middle. So Whittier, we do have to go over and repair those controls. Fairmount, we also had several issues with Fairmount over break. We had a coil break in the HVAC unit on the roof, which then caused another pipe break when we had to put water back into the system under the tunnel system, which caused a significant repair bill and a lot of work over winter break. But once again, our B&G were able to work with outside contractors to get the work done. But you see these things continually happen over and over again until we have more of a systematic fix for all of these things. So certainly as we talk about a potential referendum, these are things that we're talking about addressing. You know, our existing HVAC systems, if we do have AC in buildings, our air quality, and certainly plumbing and electrical are some of the big ticket items that are very high in the list. Okay, some other quick updates as I conclude my report. I did send a letter out to families updating them on the guidance. Many of you are aware that the CDC has recommended shortening the required isolation and quarantine periods. Per my letter earlier today, the IDPH has indicated that it supports this change and will update its guidance very soon. I'm going to pause there because we're not really sure what the IDPH means with very soon. Rarely do I use this podium or forum to go after another state agency, but they've had since December 31st to really get this in order, and they still have not been able to produce it. So districts like District 58 are really reaching out and pleading with the IDPH to update their guidance. The DuPage County Health Department has also indicated that it supports the change. While District 58 is excited for this change, we've yet to receive the updated guidance. We have received a few calls and emails today asking why this change has not been implemented for our students. The reason that change has not been implemented for our students is that we don't have the official word from the IDPH. Please note, the IDPH doesn't always mirror what the CDC says. So we need to be careful we don't have a situation where we invite hundreds of students back to school only to tell them the next day that they have to go back home. This would cause a substantial disruption to the educational process and cause a lot of extra work for families as well as our teaching staff. It is my hope that this guidance will come out very, very soon, and that is exactly what we're pressing the state to do. So the district, again, needs to be careful for all the logistical challenges that we don't implement something too soon only to take it back. So one of the things that we're still looking for answers on, while we hope that the IDPH will simply mirror what the CDC says, we're not sure if they're going to put a testing requirement in after day 5. And so that's a perfect example of something that we're waiting for. There are districts, though, that have gone ahead and made that decision. The District 99 Consortium has decided to wait and see until we actually get the official word, because again, sometimes the devil's in the detail with the guidance from the state. Please note that staff have been able to come back, as there are far fewer staff members impacted by this change. And with the staffing shortage, we were able to implement that. If we do have to walk staff back, it's a lot easier than hundreds of students. I do hope this matter is resolved by tomorrow. I have an 11 o'clock webinar that I will be attending about this guidance change, so I do hope that they will produce that letter prior to, because the webinar is explaining the IDPH guidance. So I really hope that this issue will be resolved tomorrow. We will continually look at this, and if it's not resolved tomorrow, we may have to make different decisions after consulting with our neighboring districts and the health department. Okay, last but not least, I want to talk about the COVID letters that the district has been sending out since the start of the pandemic. Throughout the pandemic, District 58 has strived to provide our families with as much information as possible regarding COVID-19 and its impact on our schools. We've also been very receptive to feedback from our families, as well as the workload of our staff. The recent spike in cases has caused the district to reevaluate our daily letters. Staff members are spending countless hours on these letters, and we believe there is a more efficient way to provide the information to our families. On Wednesday, the district will outline the new way we will communicate positive COVID cases with our families. We intend to shift to posting this information on our website by school and grade level rather than emails every single night. So parents will just be able to go and get it. They'll be able to take a look at their school, see the grade level and the number of cases that we have. Again, the same information we're putting in the letter, but really saving a ton of time for our administrators and the district office. This new way of communication will help provide parents with the information they've come to expect, but save a great deal of staff time. And so we're currently working with our nurses on the final pieces to this, but we do anticipate changes to our COVID notification, but still give our parents all the information that they're looking for. We have received several email communications and phone calls about the volume of emails that are being sent regarding these, and people asking us to rethink how we're sending those out. And so we want to be receptive to our families and make sure that they're not just hitting the delete button when they see those emails, but I do fear that we're getting there, and so it's time to consider a change for how we're doing that. And that concludes the superintendent's report.
Thank you. Kevin, any questions, comments? Appreciate it.
Just thinking about that, those letters, the information in those letters is typically when the student was positive and when they were last in the building.
Correct.
Parents don't get information on whether it was in their kid's classroom, but it gets if it was in their kid's grade level, which I'm just like processing off the cuff right now. I'm actually not sure how helpful those letters have been, because there's not much action you can take as a parent, because unless you were a close contact, which if you were, you would have been notified otherwise through another medium anyway. And so as I'm thinking through it out loud, what will parents find on the website that will be of value that the letters either accomplished and now will be on the website, or didn't accomplish and will now be available on the website?
So what we've heard from our parents consistently since the start of the pandemic is they want to know if there are active cases inside of their school. So that will certainly still be accomplished with what we are going to post on the website. The second thing that we've heard from parents is they would like to be informed if it is in their child's grade level. Now, all cards on the table, I think a lot of parents would like to be known, is it in my kid's class? And we have to, obviously be very careful that we don't violate student confidentiality. So by taking an approach that's similar to how we notify for head lice, where we say it's in the school or this particular grade level, We believe that this new approach will still be able to provide parents with that information so they can remain vigilant. Crowd, you are exactly right, though. The letters that we're currently sending are saying, okay, when the student tested positive and whether or not there were any close contacts. We will still continue to notify every single close contact, which we were doing through these letters. In terms of when a student tests positive, that information isn't necessarily, in my view, relevant because we're not going to allow that student back until their quarantine period is over. So discontinuing that piece of information, I don't disagree with you, it really wasn't all that helpful to families. I think also the situation that we're in, I think it's just evolved over time. And every once in a while, when you have that, you have to stop back and say, okay, what are parents really looking for? How much information are we able to provide, and what's the most efficient use of that time? And so that's where we're at with our current system. So what parents can envision is they'd be able to click on their kid's school, they'd be able to click on the grade level, and they'd be able to see if there's active cases. We'll still continue with our dashboard so you can see the grand total for the district and see trends. I do think that line is very helpful. And so the dashboard won't be going away, but we're envisioning a process instead of spending hours and hours a day wordsmithing letters, where the building nurse or designee in the school can simply go in at 4 o'clock and update their school's page, which would take minutes versus hours, and then that would actively appear on that table on the district's website. So again, we're committed to monitoring this new system to see whether or not this is meeting the needs of our families, and if it's not, then we'll come back and revisit that.
Thank you.
That's per every day would be updated, or once a week?
Yeah, so every day, the individual schools and grade levels,
Okay.
once a week, the overall totals for the dashboard would be updated as we're doing right now.
So can I just ask, if for the interim, as we transition into the website, will it come out on like a weekly, I know, and I'm sure most schools do this, but in PD, the principal sends a communication weekly. Will it be something that's on that communication? Oh, just, FYI, this has changed, so that still parents are getting that communication, because some people don't actively go looking, right? They see it and they go, oh, I'll go click that and find it. Is that something that will, not the specifics, but now here's where you can find it, the transition communication?
So I think what we are intending, but that's certainly a good suggestion. What we are intending is in Communicate 58 on Wednesday, we would be informing our families of the change, where they can go and get that information. And that Thursday would be the first day where we do our new system. The thought was we give our parents a heads up on Wednesday, let them know where they can then go and get the information moving forward. So like the dashboard, parents would have to seek that information rather than that information just coming to them. One of the things, though, I do think, I'm looking at one of our building principals right now, is parents are very accustomed to reading the principal's newsletters. I don't think it would hurt to keep a weekly posting on there where they can find that link, and that could be useful information. So James and I can talk to the building principals about just continually putting that link in there. So just in case they forget where to go on the website, at least once a week they could have a reminder of, I know as a parent, that would be helpful for me. So we can certainly do that. We do have many of our families who regularly check that dashboard on the website, but I don't think a reminder, especially since we're moving to a new system, is a bad idea.
Okay, great, thank you.
Anything else? All right, then welcome Todd Dreyfall to talk about our monthly business and the treasurer's report.
I have a couple pieces, assistant, because we were waiting for, the majority of our funding is property taxes, and the fall taxes have come in, and we now wait for the spring taxes, where we receive 40% of our revenue, or 38% of our revenue in the last 15 to 30 days. Because this year, a little bit different than last year, and last year had COVID, and we had some expenses that were down, and revenue is up currently this year compared to last, with some of the federal funding coming in August and collections. It's a good time, and one of the reasons we have in the year-to-date report the tables at the back where we have a comparison piece of this year against trend of a 6-year, and we add each year we do this. We add the following year, so we continually work on a trend. And you can see the trend line is in pretty good level. In fact, we're a little bit better off today than we are over the trend line. So that's always a positive piece and shows that we are in a good position. And of course, the last is where we are in a cash position for operating funds year to date compared to the prior year and where we are as a percentage. And so the report is simply that we're in a good position, but you're going to see, as you do every year at this point going forward, expenses outpace revenue during this time frame. With that, I'm going to introduce, first off, is there any questions on the year-to-date report? And with that, I'm going to introduce Betsy Allen. She's a partner in charge from Miller Cooper. Miller Cooper is the district's independent auditor that the board contracts with to prepare the audit each year. That has been in your packet. We did review it with the FAC. Betsy didn't, but we presented it with them Friday morning and talked it through them as well. And so I'll turn it over to Betsy for a little bit.
Thank you, Todd. Can everyone hear me okay?
Yes.
What's that? We don't have. Todd, we don't have the.
You have any?
The audit's in the week.
Okay, usually we get a booklet in the past.
The audit's electronically in the packet.
Okay, perfect. Thank you.
We do have bound copies, and we can certainly provide them, but in the past.
No, that's fine.
Okay.
It's down in the recommendations for action under audit report.
No, I know. I know it's there. In the past, we usually have them in our hands to peruse as she's speaking. So that's just what I was asking. No big deal. Thank you.
I was going to tell the superintendent that maybe people left because they knew the audit was on the agenda, not for his report.
I didn't want to say that. I didn't want to hurt your feelings.
Well, good evening. I'm just going to quickly just run through the different sections, not going to get into the details, just so you know what's within the report, and then just point out a couple of things within our 2 letters that we did issue. First of all, on page 1, which is probably the most important part of this document, is our independent auditor's report. Again, this year is an unmodified clean opinion, which is the highest level that we can give as auditors. One thing I do want to point out on page 2 of the opinion, there is an emphasis of a matter paragraph there due to a restatement that we did, and it was due to a change in accounting principle. So there's 2 different kinds of restatement. There's an error and there's a change in accounting principle. We had to implement GASB, which is the Governmental Accounting Standards Board. We had to implement GASB 84, which was the reporting of fiduciary activities, which are your student activities. And in order to properly report those, we had to restate the general educational fund beginning balance. On pages 5 through 12 is a management discussion and analysis, which is prepared by management. I always tell boards and people that aren't financially savvy that this is a great part of the document to go to if you just want to find some financial highlights of the district. It also gives an overview of the different types of financial statements that are in here, as well as some condensed financial statements, and a section at the end of it just describing items that could have financial effects on the district in the future. Pages 13 through 21 are the basic financial statements. Pages 13 and 14 are what we refer to as the government-wide financial statements. And then starting on page 15 is where you will see the fund financial statements, which is what you're more used to seeing on a monthly basis. And the main difference between the 2 statements is that these government-wide statements on page 13 and 14 will show all the capital assets and all the debt of the district. Pages 22 through 69 of the report are the notes to the financial statements, and this is where you'll have more detailed information that describe the numbers that are within the basic financial statements we were just looking at. Here you're going to find also your summary of significant accounting policies, more detail on the debt of the district, the capital assets, and many pages of the pension liabilities and the OPEB, which is your other post-employment benefit liabilities. And then to round out the document, the final sections are the required supplementary information and the supplementary financial information. Here you're going to have some multi-year schedules again, describing some trends within the pension and OPEB liabilities, as well as budgetary schedules for each of the funds held by the district. The budgetary schedules will have a comparison between the current year budget and the actual, and also a comparison of the prior year actual. And then the final schedule within the audit report is a schedule of the principal and interest payments by bond issuance and by year of the payments that have to, the remaining payments to be made on the bonds. Are there any questions on this document? And then we did issue 2 letters. One is our management control deficiency letter. Please keep in mind there are different types of deficiencies that we can report. There's material weaknesses, significant deficiencies, control deficiencies, and management advice. We did have just 2 control deficiencies that we did report. One of them was just in regards to indicating formal review on the bank recs. Well, we're pretty much sure that there is review being done on the bank recs. In order for us to, determine that for sure, to have a formal documentation is what we need to see. The second item on here was just in regards to revenue recognition of reporting of some registration fees. And really it was just the timing of when the revenue was recognized, whether it was deferred revenue or actual revenue to be reported. And then the last item on here was a management advice in regards to technology and data security. Again, this has nothing to say that their technology or there's any problems within the district. We just put this in all of our clients' letters just to remind them of, all the changing and the data breaches that have gone on, and just to be aware of this information. And then the final letter that we issued is our required communication to the board letter. And this just states that we did our audit in accordance with general accepted accounting principles. We also did it in accordance with government auditing standards, which is required by the State Board of Education, and also with uniform guidance, which is a single audit requirements, as the district receives over $750,000 of federal funds, and therefore requires a single audit. Page 2 of this letter discusses GASB statements. Again, GASB is the Governmental Accounting Standards Board. It discusses any statements that were effective and implemented for the current year, as well as statements that are applicable in future years that we will continue to work with the district on implementing those statements. The letter also discusses any of our significant financial statement disclosures and significant estimates. And then when we did release the report on December 21st, management did sign our management representation letter in order to release the deliverables and to file everything with the appropriate agencies. And again, I want to thank Todd and his entire staff, for their assistance during the audit and to get this out and moving. I know that this year and last year have been different years for all of us, so we appreciate all the help from the district too. Does anyone have any questions?
Any questions on any part of those documents?
More of maybe a question for Todd on the bank recs. What's the new control that's put in place?
I gotta make sure I sign them instead of just looking through them. I mean, we do, there was, with all the transition and piece, we do go through them. Probably not sign them as faithfully, but we'll work that out. That was something we talked about in getting done, so we'll have that. That actually has been going on now for a while, that we've been signing off and reviewing them. So.
Just out of curiosity, who in the office does do the bank recs?
Pardon?
Who in the office does do the bank recs?
The bookkeeper does the bank recs. So, and we still have, and one of the pieces, we still have a CPA that reviews the reports and closes those out as an outside piece for an hour or two a month. And that's one thing we've been wanting to phase out of. Obviously, given this year, it's been a lower piece to manage while we were managing everything else we had going on. So,
Just one thing to add to that, the bank recs that we did look at in the year-end bank recs, there was no issues with them. When we're doing our walkthroughs of different cycles, significant cycles we look at, one of the district's controls is the formal review of that, so this is why it was written in this letter. But I just want to point out that there was nothing, there were no issues with the bank recs that we did look at.
Sounds good, thank you.
I have a question. I noticed that for the Rev Rec issue, it was mainly an O-keep overstate, understate. And that's likely resulted from the pandemic. Any other Rev Rec items pop up, or is there a way that we can?
It goes back to the spring and summer of 2020, and when we opened the fiscal year, and it was a matter of when closing those out and finally getting those getting those fees back to everybody. That's how, we have to keep going back to 2 fiscal years back that we had that issue. And it was only with those pieces that we have revenue. It's a modified accrual, so we always have accruals of items that are going in and coming backwards and anticipate that. But this was an unusual piece and an unusual amount, a larger amount than normal because of that month plus or 6 weeks that we were closed in the spring of 2020.
You'll read in the letter too that we did not go back and restate for that amount because it was immaterial. It was recognized in 1 year, so it is in your fund balance. So
Right.
So we did not go back and restate for this due to the amount being immaterial.
Right, because it balanced after the 2-year period.
And normally the audit is presented usually no later than, we always go and hope for November. It's been a little late. This year is largely due to the ESSER. In the funding system from the federal government, they gave money and then they came up with rules as to how to account and put it in the audit afterwards and with the state. And so every school district's being delayed in this process because of that accounting process that the auditors are being required to file with ISB on the ESSER funds from this last year. So everything's gotten kind of pushed back a little bit. The prior year was due to a TRS annuity issue that numbers had to change. So, but normally we would have it at an earlier board meeting, just for clarification.
And then the third item, the technology data risk, I've talked about it prior. I think Dr. Myler knows my view on it. So I look forward to seeing what mitigation efforts or reporting or ongoing efforts we go in that area, because I know that that's an area that we want to grow in a little bit.
And I pointed out to the FAC meeting, we annually, when we go through our insurance renewal or bidding, cyber insurance is one of those pieces, and it has gotten a lot more strenuous in the application and question answering. I used to be able to answer it, and now I think James needs a day and a couple people to go through the process just because of all the extra additional things. You did see the 2-factor authentication start at the beginning of this year, this fiscal school year, in part because one of those security issues. So that is also one of those things that because of coverage and insurance,
right.
We're always constantly having to update and keep those things in mind.
Aren't a lot of I think somewhere a lot of the insurance underwriters or insurance companies are requiring that 2-factor.
Yeah.
In order for you to get coverage now.
Right, I have to fill out our cybersecurity every year, and we're in healthcare, so I completely understand this.
Right.
It's a lot of documentation. So the more that it's collected over the course of the year, the better off we'll be.
Yes.
When we're in negotiations with insurance.
Okay. Any other questions or comments for the auditor or for Todd?
Thank you.
Thank you very much. We're going to move on to committees. The first policy committee did not meet since the last board meeting, but the legislative committee meeting did meet on January 5th. Dr. Russell?
Yeah, so just a really quick update. The legislative committee is preparing for its biggest event of the year, which is the legislative breakfast, which will be held here in this room. I do want to point out that due to COVID and the number of people in the room, we will not be serving breakfast, but we still refer to it as the legislative breakfast. You may hear the term forum this year. There will not be breakfast served, but we're very excited about hosting the event. The group at the last meeting really focused in on the questions that they'd like to ask both our federal legislators and then our local legislators. At next week's meeting, this week's meeting on Wednesday, we'll be assigning different roles for the various members and talking about who will be introducing it. That's likely one of the two board members on the committee and assigning the breakout rooms and things like that. While this event will be in person, we do have a backup plan in the event there are high absences or some of the legislators couldn't come. So there, is a plan B in the event we're not able to host an in-person event, but things are moving forward and we're excited. We're in the process, and I want to thank Melissa and Megan for just, again, double and triple checking RSVPs and making sure that everyone can attend. And just as a reminder, while this is a District 58 event, we also invite all of the other school districts that feed into District 99 and their board members, and then also the same for District 99. So it is a very popular event. The legislators like it, and we like it as well, and we're excited to host. That will be on January 28th at 7:30 here in this room.
I'll make sure to eat breakfast before.
Yeah. Good idea.
Thank you. Next up is the Financial Advisory Committee, which was held on January the 7th. I'll do a very brief update. A lot of it you've kind of already heard. We did an audit review. We also took an opportunity to kind of review a couple of the slides on the capital presentation that we've seen now a couple of times. The reason why we did that is now that we're past some of the Longfellow work and some of the other big kind of projects that the FAC's been working on, the next frontier that we'll kind of be looking at will be playing our part in a potential upcoming referendum. So we'll be having some conversations for that. So we were kind of reviewing what we've sort of, now that we've completed Longfellow, what those funds will be used for. We made sure we reiterated that any funds that we take from that Longfellow proceeds will be work that won't have to be redone should a referendum pass. It's going to be stuff that can stand alone. So that was a big part of our conversation. We also did review the year-to-date report and focused on the fact that we are now getting to that point where revenue is not coming in anymore, and now we're starting to eat away at the fund balance. And then we spent just a little bit of a time looking at the failing equipment through our district and the repairs that's been done, and we took the opportunity to thank the hard work of our maintenance team, who continues to keep equipment that is severely old up and running. Sorry to put you on the spot, Kevin, but we were talking about some of our neighboring districts were fixing, I think, units from the 90s, and we're still that were replacing units from the 90s, and we're still repairing units from the 60s and 70s. Are those dates right?
Yes, you're correct.
Yeah. So they're doing a full replacement of equipment from the 90s. We're still trying to patch through stuff from the 60s and 70s. So, yeah. So we appreciate the hard work they're doing to keep that going. But with that, that really concludes my report, unless there's any questions. Anything I'm missing, Steve?
No, good summary.
Thank you.
Darren.
All right, the DLT has not met since the last meeting. Neither has the Health and Wellness Committee. So that brings us to the discussion portion of tonight's meeting. And so we're going to welcome Justin Sissel here to do an update on the portrait of a graduate and the key performance indicators.
Thank you very much. This is listed as a discussion item. I don't know that it will actually generate much discussion tonight, as it really is truly just an update and an opportunity for the board to ask any ongoing questions as we continue to share the work we're doing around this important topic. So this is really a repeat of a slide from a couple of months ago, just reminding the board and the community. This conversation really focuses on a long-term definition of student success across the school district, and so we're combining those concepts of the portrait of a graduate, the characteristics that we want to see instilled in our students when they leave our system, along with key performance indicators, which we have more traditionally focused on academic achievement measures, and we're looking to use these two concepts together so that everything works in tandem and we have one cohesive set of success criteria that we can apply everywhere from the individual student level all the way to the district level. Since we last talked about this with the board, we've had several groups have met and reviewed both the draft descriptors, the work behind it and kind of previewed some of the future work. So you can see the district leadership team, our administrative team, and then we've been working with the Curriculum Council, and most recently with ECRA. We've been now engaged in planning calls with them. We're at the point where they are in receipt of the majority of the information they need from us to be able to begin processing, analyzing, and bringing back some information to us. And we're excited to really see that work start to take shape significantly in the next few weeks. So tonight we just want to bring all of that work back in front of the board, let you know where we're at, and then see if there are any questions as we look really toward a much more detailed and formal presentation later at the February curriculum workshop. Just a few things to highlight that really were discussed across all the groups that have worked through this. One is that though we talk about Portrait of a Graduate, we want to make sure that there are measurement points, and some have described them as checkpoints along the way at different places in a student's journey in District 58. So certainly looking at the different ways we can measure all of these descriptors at different points in time and compared to other points in time, obviously keeping achievement and growth together. There's also been a lot of conversation around, when you set targets as a district, that's one thing, but each individual student enters and ostensibly leaves our system in a unique position. And so we want to be careful that as we do this work, we recognize that uniqueness of each individual student. And so you'll see in the next slide, there's a draft sort of overview description of some of our beliefs behind the ideas of listing some of these success descriptors. We've also talked a lot about measurement and how we're going to do this. We're very comfortable with things like MAP and AIMSweb and measuring academic achievement and growth and the IAR and those kinds of ways. We've been doing that for a while. And so the work of creating those academic achievement and growth descriptors and measurement tools and even projections and targets is going to come much more readily to us as a district than perhaps measuring some of those other descriptors and really thinking through that. In the conversations we've had, we do ask teachers, for example, to measure and to report on some student learner behaviors as part of our trimester report cards. But we also haven't spent a lot of time doing things like inter-rater reliability training with teachers. Right now, those measurements are used by an individual teacher as a communication metric with an individual family about an individual student. If we're starting to talk about scaling that up to how are we doing as a district in some of these ways, as just one example, it'll take us some time to reframe a little bit of that conversation and make sure that the questions one teacher might be asking internally as they're evaluating those learner behaviors are consistent with the questions another teacher might be asking so that the data really could be meaningful on a broader scale, if we were to go that direction in terms of measurement. So all of that just leads to the consideration that we may present this in sort of a rolling format, where we've got our descriptors, we know where we're headed, we know what the full Portrait of a Graduate success descriptors will be, but as we think about our capacity to effectively and authentically measure all of this in a first year, we may focus on replacing some of those key performance indicators we've been most comfortable with and most reliant upon in the forefront, and then continuing our work with ECRA and with all these groups to build out further measurement going forward. So this slide has that draft language to kind of contextualize the student success descriptors. And so I left the board printed copies of these next two slides as well, just to be able to make sure you can see all of the wording there. Again, this isn't final wording by any means, and I won't read it to you because it is on the screen and it's in front of you. But the idea here is to make sure that we're putting some context behind all of this whenever we would present these performance descriptors. And then the next slide just looks at how these descriptors have evolved. Truly, there's not much substantive difference. There's a couple of word choices here and there that have shifted. The other thing you may notice from the November presentation is we had initially listed academic and learner behaviors, and we've removed those characterizations to just ensure that all of these could fall in one or the other realm in some ways. And so we'll let the measurement tools kind of determine, how we might look at some of those things as we go forward. And so these will be the descriptors that we will use to define that success overall. And then within each of these descriptors, we will be developing the measurements and the metrics and the goals that will fall under each. So really then that just leads us to next steps. We are excited to receive a whole lot of information from ECRA in just a couple of weeks. And so we are scheduling a meeting with them to digest and process the first round of what information they can give us. Then we scheduled an extra meeting with the district leadership team right after that to bring that group up to speed on what we've received from ECRA, what we expect to have happen and then we'll be able to update the board at the regular meeting in February through that district leadership team meeting update. Ultimately, on February 28th, our consultants from ECRA will be attending both the district leadership team meeting and the curriculum workshop later that evening to share what we hope will be a sort of beginning draft of what we might hope to adopt for, as I said, some of these specific measurements and specific goals. So we're gonna take it one step at a time, but that's our initial target. And based on our conversation this morning with our team from ECRA, they seem confident that we will be able to deliver that. Again, probably not for each of the 7 descriptors, but certainly for a few of them to begin and then see how we feel about that process as we continue to build out. And so that ultimately, if everything continues on that time frame, we would be looking as early as the March regular board meeting to make a formal adoption of some components of this student success measurement plan. So that's what I have by way of update. If there are any specific questions or anything else I can bring back to the groups that are working on all of this, I'm happy to take that.
Comments, questions?
Appreciate the update, Justin.
Justin, can I ask a question about what we should expect as a KPI measure for this year? Will that come out of this work, or are we looking for how to measure ourselves in May and June from another source?
So I would like to wait until we hear from ECRA in terms of what they're looking at for measurements. Again, if we're using similar metrics that we have, that we can access data from earlier this year or from a prior year, it could certainly be possible that we could have a spring 22 KPI measurement. But if ECRA has a number of different ways to measure things for which we may not, we may want to decide that we look at it as a 23. Ultimately, ECRA is going to say, here are some great ideas and ways you could do this, and we as a district leadership team and ultimately a board are going to say we would like to go that direction. So they're going to narrow the field for us, and then in these next meetings in February, we will answer that question together.
Sounds good, thank you.
Any other comments, questions? I think just one thing that I just want to state, or I guess 2 things really. On slide number 2, you had mentioned, you see portrait of a graduate kind of as those less tangible things in the KPIs. I think if you're breaking those down, I think I would also kind of still think of that in the aggregate of where we're hitting our academic goals too. Like if you did like a 2nd grade, 5th grade, and 8th grade kind of markers in there, like what are our key kind of academic points that we should be hitting by the end of 2nd grade, for example. I think that would still be good to look at that in the aggregate. And then I think just something that I want to mention, because we talk about, you spend a lot of time in here talking about, we still look at the individual student. I think that's an incredible important attitude to have. And I think that we always know that there's going to be people that are blowing us off the charts in the KPIs. They're off the grid on one end, but we're also going to have some kids that are on the other end as well. And I don't look at this, I guess in my mind, of just going, did we hit 85% or whatever, but really looking at how we make these trigger points for either minor or potentially even major interventions. And I think as a board, we don't necessarily need to be involved all the time, like once this goes live, but it'd be nice to know just kind of how we plan on using, ways that we see that data kind of propagating back down to the classroom or the building level, so that they can utilize that and make sure that we're providing, that we're not just sitting here excited that we hit a big KPI marker, but the people that are off that chart somehow, that we're taking care of that. So just something I want to mention as you guys go to sit in the DLT meeting, but I'm excited to see what you guys are going to present. Thank you. Thank you.
Thanks, Justin.
All right. Do you want to go check the basket for me, somebody? This is an opportunity for members of the audience now to share in public comment with the board, but is not intended for a time for members of the public to enter into a dialogue with the board. Issues raised during public comment may be added to future agendas or addressed by administrative staff as appropriate. The board is allotted 30 minutes. We ask that you keep your comment to a 3-minute limit so that everyone has an opportunity to speak. I have 1 card, so I'm just going to go ahead and invite you up. Brian Sewell, if you wouldn't mind stepping up to the mic so everyone can hear you.
Good evening. I thought long and hard about coming here tonight. The thought of a giant clock and buzzer up here, despite there being ample time for everybody to speak their mind, gave me pause, but here I am. Does my opinion make any difference? I'm not sure, We have diversity on everything but opinion in this state and in every facet of our public school system. But it is worth it because doing nothing under these circumstances is simply unacceptable. Silence while our public schools continue to deliver poor outcomes, particularly in math and science, cannot be tolerated. District 58 embarked on a DEI audit in 2021 after accepting federal funds to root out systemic racism in our schools. Our consultant recommends race-based quotas to other districts and sees all things through the lens of race. Parents are told District 58 is under no obligation to adopt the recommendations. The board will review the process. It will be collaborative, many opportunities to comment. District 58, it is clear, does not teach CRT, but we are paying consultants to suggest that we add it to our strategic plans. Would be more accurate. We have a compulsory, monopolistic public school system that fails to deliver acceptable outcomes to our students, but affords private education only to the wealthy. Tough for the rest of you. 50% failing in math, 28% lagging in science. Yes, even in our precious village. As a layman, it's almost incomprehensible that we would spend $19,000 per student, more than nearly anywhere else in the world, to achieve these outcomes. What is wrong? Is it a distraction from rigor and the fetishizing of DEI? Is it adopting national sex ed standards that specify by law that if we do not teach the national standard, we can teach nothing? Not yet adopted in this district, I understand. Is it Common Core, anyone, or whatever it is called? Who can keep track as these word salads morph? We tender the emotional development of our kids to bureaucrats and teachers. That could be it. Maybe the problem is not enough SEL or the wrong kind of SEL. I've heard of transformative SEL that we don't use, but perhaps we will one day. There's an expert to recommend it. All have failed to improve the outcomes that are deemed recommended by experts. Is it the COVID impacts that sub-optimize and erosion of values? Why should we trust the experts anymore? Hardline ideologues in Springfield touting PhDs make up the bulk of the bureaucrats who dictate what our children must learn. They don't even make excuses for poor outcomes. It's accepted, and this is inexcusable. There's always more work to do, but always by the same professionals who are participating in the current malaise. There is no diversity of thought in the state board or administrative associations. DEI, queer theory, CRT are more important to them than rigor. Blame poor outcomes on COVID in the meantime. The largest school district in Illinois, 74% of the students do not achieve at grade level, yet these experts are making recommendations that impact our district. It must be a systemic issue. We have experts at DG 99, Hank Thiel, who can't look at a library book showing a child on his knees fellating another child and make the call that it is pornography. I expect greater expertise, quite frankly, at his pay scale and greater leadership. He refers the issue to additional experts to evaluate the situation. DEI experts approve of the book. It must be good. Moving on. As children are exposed to queer theory in schools, they become confused about their sexuality. An army of social workers and consultants stand ready to resolve this most recent phenomena. Mental illness and poor behavior is rife among our children. You just simply need to go into any of our schools and you can see the behavior. Self-harm is through the roof. Again, blame it on COVID. We need more social workers, principals who deem it acceptable to advertise racially segregated field trips in DG 99 cannot figure out why parents object. It's all just a terrible misunderstanding, I was told. One must reflect on what MLK would think. Perhaps it would be, where are the separate drinking fountains? Is that next? DG 99 has 2 civil rights complaints underway now, and is at the national forefront of a culture war, in addition to facing multiple DOJ complaints. In the enthrall of DEI experts, we have calibrated all systems to extreme minorities, while the system fails most students academically. Experts think nothing of forcing our children to wear masks all day. Despite conclusive evidence, it does nothing. And I understand that it's not the district decision, but nonetheless, the experts turn away from evidence that is not to their taste or censor it. As we approach MLK Day, we should reflect on how far backward public education has slid. Mediocrity, not merit. Diversity as long as it's not an opinion. Poor outcomes. Look away. Must be an external factor. Not sure. I do not believe it's for lack of robust effort or good intentions, but results are either there or they are not. Where exactly are we headed again? I'm less inclined than ever to leave it to the experts and ask that the board carefully consider the disaster at DG 99 before jumping on the DEI bandwagon. Thank you.
Thank you, Brian. And with the limited audience today, I went ahead and didn't stop you. So. All right, we're going to go ahead and skip recess if that's all right with everybody, and we're going to move on to the approval of minutes. Are there any suggested revisions to the minutes as presented in the packet of materials? If not, is there a motion to approve the minutes of the December 6, 2021 regular meeting as presented?
So moved. Second.
All right, Melissa, will you please call roll?
Member Weiner.
Aye.
Member Joshi.
Aye.
Member Ellis.
Aye.
Member Hannis.
Aye.
Member Harris.
Aye.
Member Olchik.
Aye.
Member Hughes.
Aye, the motion carried to approve the minutes of the December 6, 2021 regular meeting as presented. Next up is the consent agenda. Are there any items that a board member would like to have considered separately? All right, if not, is there a motion to approve the consent agenda consisting of the personnel report and financial statements, consisting of the list of bills and summary?
So moved.
Second.
All right, Melissa, will you please call roll?
Member Olchik.
Aye.
Member Weiner.
Aye.
Member Joshi.
Aye.
Member Ellis.
Aye.
Member Hannis.
Aye.
Member Harris.
Aye.
Member Hughes.
Aye, the motion carried. The consent agenda has been approved as presented in the packet of materials. We have three items up for three recommendations for action tonight. The first one is the approval of the fiscal year 2021 audit report. Is there a motion to accept the fiscal year 2021 audit report as presented?
So moved.
Second.
All right, any discussion?
Nope.
Okay. Okay. All right. Yeah, it's just, Melissa, will you please call roll?
Member Weiner.
Aye.
Member Joshi.
Aye.
Member Ellis.
Aye.
Member Hannis.
Aye.
Member Harris.
Aye.
Member Olchik.
Aye.
Member Hughes.
Aye, the motion carried to accept the fiscal year 2021 audit report as presented. Next up, we have deletion of exhibits on the board policy manual. Is there a motion to delete the exhibits listed in the attached memo from the board policy manual?
So moved.
Second.
All right, any discussion? Melissa, please go roll.
Member Olchik.
Aye.
Member Weiner.
Aye.
Member Joshi.
Aye.
Member Ellis.
Aye.
Member Hannis.
Aye.
Member Harris.
Aye.
Member Hughes.
Aye, the motion carried to delete the exhibits listed in the attached memo from the board policy manual. Last up is the dismissal of a probationary ESP employee for reasons other than reduction in force. Is there a motion to adopt the resolution regarding the dismissal of the probationary educational support personnel employee Kyle Hall for reasons other than reduction in force?
So moved.
Second.
All right, any discussion? Melissa, please call roll.
Member Weiner.
Aye.
Member Joshi.
Aye.
Member Ellis.
Aye.
Member Hannis.
Aye.
Member Harris.
Aye.
Member Olchik.
Aye.
Member Hughes.
Aye, the motion carried to adopt the resolution regarding the dismissal of probationary educational support employee Kyle Hall for reasons other than the reduction in force. Few announcements. Please make note of these dates. We have a policy committee meeting at Herrick Middle School on Tuesday, January 11th. That'll be at 7 a.m. On Wednesday, January 12th at 3:45 p.m. will be the next legislative committee meeting. That'll be at Herrick Middle School. We have a legislative meeting, the legislative breakfast, which will take place here at O'Neill Middle School, which will be on Friday, January 28th at 7:30 a.m. There's a policy committee meeting at Herrick Middle School on Tuesday, February 1st at 7 a.m. The district leadership team meeting will take place at O'Neill Middle School on February 7th at 4 p.m. And our next Village Hall meeting, or our next regular meeting will be at Village Hall, and that'll be on Monday, February 14th at 7 p.m. The board will now meet in closed session. Is there a motion to move to? Is there a motion to move to closed session in order to discuss the appointment, employment, compensation, discipline, performance, or dismissal of specific employees of the district? That's 5 ILCS 22C1. Collective negotiating matters between a public body and its employees or its representatives, or deliberations concerning salary schedules for one or more classes of employees. That's 5 ILCS 122C2. and the discussion of minutes of meetings lawfully closed under the Open Meetings Act, whether for the purposes of approval by the body of the minutes or the semi-annual review of minutes as mandated by Section 2.06, that's 5 ILCS 122C21.
So moved.
Second.
Thank you. Any discussion? All right, Melissa, please call roll.
Member Weiner.
Aye.
Member Doshi.
Aye.
Member Ellis. Aye. Member Hannis.
Aye.
Member Harris.
Aye.
Member Olchik.
Aye.
Member Hughes.
Aye. The motion carried. The board will now move into closed session. After a short recess, let's meet back up by, let's say, 8:25.